Studios on middays. Dave Hughes here, and joining me in studio now, my buddy with the Mississippi Highway Patrol, Major Johnny Polous. How you doing today, sir?
Doing great, Dave. Great to be in the studio with you again.
It's good to see you again, man. We talk occasionally and email and text, but we don't get to catch up face to face very often.
That's right,
and that's because you are incredibly busy.
Well, it has been a little busy, Layla. I'll have to agree with that.
Yeah, but. Especially with what we're here to talk about today, busy on something just hugely important, I think, and something that I don't even think good is a strong enough word to describe it from my perspective anyway. Tell us about the 1034 project, and probably for those of you that aren't familiar with 10 codes, explain where that name came from because it's perfect.
Okay, so with the Mississippi Department of Public Safety, the law enforcement agencies that are under the umbrella of DPS use the 10 code system. And 1034 is the name of our wellness and resiliency program within the agency. So we sat down and said, what better name can we give it than 1034, which stands for Officer Request Backup. So we named it the 1034 Project, and that name has worked really well for us.
That's a fantastic name because for a couple of reasons to me. Number one, it perfectly describes exactly what you're doing. Mm-hmm. But it's also kind of a little bit of an inside thing for law enforcement.
That's right. That's exactly right. And again, going back to the program when Colonel Ginn and Commissioner Tindall came to me about starting a wellness and resiliency program, Dave, I'm going to be honest with you. I was a little apprehensive about that for a number of reasons. Number one, I'm one of the old guys. I was raised in that I'm the older generation, and you know what we do. We've talked about that of how we deal with things, and so I sat down, I thought about it, and I definitely started drilling down, and to tell you this real quick, it's probably going to be one of the most important things I've ever done for the agency. It's been needed for a long time, as you well know. We've made great strides with it. We are now branching the program out. It started with the Mississippi Highway Patrol, but as you know, we have multiple law enforcement agencies under the DPS umbrella, and we had the Commercial Transport Enforcement Division award ceremony today, and I can tell you it has just been a blessing and a breath of fresh air for me to work with the men and women in that division to help us move this program along. So again, we're making great strides, but we have a long ways to go.
Well, and I know, and you and I talked on the phone yesterday about this for a while. And I knew immediately what your biggest challenge was going to be, and that's to get people to be open to the concept that it's okay to ask for help.
That's exactly right. And I think everyone knows there's a stigma associated not only with law enforcement but the military whenever it comes to any discussion about a mental wellness. We're going to run in the opposite direction of those conversations because at the end of the day, we're the protectors, right? So our goal is to protect people. We can't show any level of weakness. But at the end of the day, what we have to understand, we are human. We're human, and we're going to deal with certain things either in a good way or a bad way. And we have to start normalizing situations of what law enforcement officers encounter out there every day, just like first responders. Dave, the things that these officers see is not normal. It is not normal. So we have to realize how we're going to react to some of those things, and how we feel is not going to be normal either. But the actual human emotion of what you're feeling is normal. It doesn't matter if you're military, law enforcement, first responder. You're going to handle things in a certain way. We're just wanting officers to handle them in the right way now going forward.
And the thing to remember is you cannot compare your situation, your experiences, what you're dealing with your brother-in-law who's a plumber. Because these kind of things and the kind of things you're exposed to and you experience in a career in law enforcement, a first responder of any kind, are additive. They stack up. I'm sorry that, and I'm sorry to say something like this, but you're going to understand. about the 10th time you have to work to try to get a child out of a wrecked car that may or may not be with us any longer, that adds up over time. That doesn't all get lumped into just one box.
That's
it gets
exactly right.
bigger and bigger and worse and worse. That's what you're talking about here. This is a very specific type of thing that law enforcement has to deal with. We just have to work past that perception that, well, if you ask for help, you're weak.
That's right.
That's the opposite of the truth, in my opinion.
That's correct. And a lot of people don't think about this, but a law enforcement officer can see things in one day the average citizen may never see in a lifetime. And you talked about seeing that over and over, and we call packing it in. We just steadily pack it in. But eventually, like anything, it's going to overflow, right? And that's where a lot of our problems come in with this profession, that we keep stacking it and packing it, and then when it overflows, we don't know how to handle that, and usually poor decisions are made. And again, that's what we have to correct with normalizing situations that law enforcement officers encounter every day. Not only that, response to critical incidents and repeated exposures over and over not only affect the law enforcement officer, it affects their family members as well. And that's another component of this program, is to bring the family members in, because they deal with a lot too, trying to support us, but we have to do a better job of supporting them.
Well, and anybody that was in that class will remember this. I made my senior year in high school, my senior English teacher, cry in front of the class because she had us all write a paper about our hero. Wrote mine about my dad, and it was titled, "I Never Know If He's Coming Home."
Completely understand. Completely understand. You know, let me back up when I say that. I did not understand that when I became a trooper and started working. I did not understand or realize what family members go through, worrying about whether I was going to come back through the door. But I can assure you, I know now, because we have a son. My wife and I have a son that is now a trooper. He has 5.5 years on, and I can tell you, now I understand. I understand.
You are equal parts proud dad and terrified.
Exactly.
And there's no other logical way to react to that.
And not only for him, but all these officers that are out there working right now, and the future officers that we're hoping are going to come to this agency and multiple agencies across the state, we have to do better for them. We have to create a wellness culture. And again, you're going to hear me say normalize a lot. We have to create that wellness culture to where it is accepted. It is a part of training we've never implemented within law enforcement, but we have to do that to get better.
Well, and I think this is a good start. And you sitting here, with the gold patches, Major, with the structure of law enforcement, there is a leader. There is somebody at the top. When it comes down from the top,
absolutely,
that carries a lot more weight.
That's right.
Than any other direction it could come from.
And I'll tell you why that is so important, because, for example, our rank structure, our command staff, starts with the commissioner, comes down to the colonel and lieutenant colonel. They were first ones on board because they see everything. They're going to be the first ones to see the bad things that happen within this agency whenever an officer doesn't make the right decision. But we're at a point now, we're starting to see why they're making some of these bad decisions. And we have to try to intervene when possible and provide resources and training to prevent that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think this is, to me, this is huge.
It is. It is. And again, we need the response from the public to help us with this. And they're going to make it even better for us.
Well, and when we come back, final segment of the show, you talk about the stigma and the perception within law enforcement. It ain't just within law enforcement, Major. It's society in general.
Oh, I agree.
Don't you dare ask anybody. Come on.
I agree.
Now, it doesn't help that a lot of times in other cases, and that's why I'm excited about this, you ask for help, and it's like climbing a mountain barefoot to get it. That's a whole separate problem, but you're correcting that problem. You're dealing with that straight up right here.
We're trying.
It is fantastic. The 1034 Project, we will continue with that before we go 10-7. Well, we're just going to go with all the 10 codes today. Why not?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, well, you and I understand what I'm talking about anyway. Final segment of the show with Major Johnny Polous of the Mississippi Highway Patrol next. Dave Hughes in studio with us, Major Johnny Polous with the Mississippi Highway Patrol. And during the break, this highlights why this is an area of concern and something that needs to be focused on with the 1034 Project. You pulled up some stats, Major, and this should explain it to anyone who has any question how important this is. If you would give those stats.
So this is as sobering as it gets. Nationwide, this year for 2023, nationally, we've had 42 law enforcement officers die in the line of duty by gunfire. 42 have lost their lives to gunfire in the line of duty. For 2023, nationally, we have lost 89 officers to suicide.
So more than twice.
Absolutely, yes.
The amount.
Twice.
That have lost their lives in the line of duty have taken their life.
That's correct.
You think it's a problem? You think it's something that needs to be addressed? If you have any other questions, we can repeat those numbers again because you obviously weren't paying attention. It is just that cut and dried. And the first step is solving any problem. The first step is what? Admitting you have a problem.
Right.
Well, there you go. We've now admitted we have a problem. The 1034 Project is here to kind of address that.
That's correct. And in the 89, I look at this, and just real quick, I'm going to tell you this, that I lost a family member that is a retired trooper to suicide in June, and that was a game changer for me. That pretty much well solidified my position with the wellness program and knowing how important it is. And looking at these 89 officers, that tells you, and we call it suffering in silence. And that's what we have to fight. We have to do our best to prevent officers from suffering in silence. And not only that, there are family members that basically suffer in silence too, because sometimes we don't want to give them a voice. You probably encountered that growing up. Sometimes we don't allow our family members to have a voice. And again, the importance of the program.
Very much so. And by the way, you don't talk about it. Law enforcement, families, whatever, you don't talk about it.
That's right.
You might occasionally talk about it amongst others in the same group, but that's it. Aside from that, no, everything's fine.
And they wear a badge, too, to a degree. We forget that. We forget that they don't know what we're doing out there when we're working. We do. We know if we were successful in coming back to our vehicle after a traffic stop, but we do not call our loved ones after every traffic stop and tell them, I made it. I'm good on this one. They don't know that until we walk back through the door. And we tend to forget that they go 10-8 when we go 10-8 and they go 10-7 when we go 10-7, and let our audience know 10-8 is on duty and 10-7 is off duty.
Yeah. And I'm going to take it a step further. Kind of like the law enforcement officers, the families never go really off duty.
I have to agree with you.
You know,
I have to agree with you.
It's always kind of a cloud hanging in the back of the room. You don't talk about it. You don't acknowledge it. Nobody looks directly at it because, I don't want to call attention to that cloud that's hanging over there. But it's there.
That's right. Another important component of the program, Dave, is that we're now helping law enforcement officers actually transition to retirement. And, when I teach the classes, I always ask the officers, how much of this baggage do you actually want to take with you into your retirement life? And if you start thinking about that, if you've got a 25, 30-year career, and you've had a lot of stuff you've packed down, for those years. When are you going to unpack that? Are you going to try to unpack it when you're retired, or do you start unpacking it now when you start learning how to? You start learning how to do that and actually help your family unpack a lot of that stuff too, because as we've talked about, they go through a lot as well.
Well, and I think, and I'm just airing this out in the great wild, an angle to take. You're not teaching them to get help. You're not teaching them to reach out and be weak. You're teaching them how to use a new weapon.
That's correct. That's correct. To have a happy lifestyle, a productive lifestyle, and to be able to go out and enjoy your family life where your family can enjoy the same things.
It is a fantastic program. I am tickled to death to see it. Keep up the good work, man.
Well, we appreciate that, Dave.
See, I knew I liked you the day I met you all those years ago. That's it for Middays on this Tuesday. Enjoyed it. Gerard back out on the road, flying around the universe tomorrow and Thursday, I believe, as well. And I'll see you again soon.